Hey everybody, welcome to the 14th installment of Isaiah That's the Conversation. Today we have Inna Titorenko with us. Would you introduce yourself to the people?
Hi guys.
First of all, did I say your name right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yeah. My name is Inna, and I'm here to share some stories with you and inspire you.
All right. So tell the people about where you're from.
I am from Ukraine. I just came to US one semester ago in August, and I'm getting used to US. But
Yeah.
I feel like at home for some reason. I don't know. Maybe because I get connection with people very
Yeah.
fast. Maybe because some other stuff. But I
Well,
get used very fast.
yeah, I don't know much about Ukraine, but I think the culture is a lot different over there from here, right?
Um, I cannot even say is
No?
it a lot different because I grew up on some American movies,
Yeah.
Hollywood serials, so I cannot say that it's too much different.
Yeah.
And a lot of because I was working in IT area, um, there are a lot of American stuff brought,
Mhm.
so
So
it's
you're
different,
yeah.
but not so much.
But see, Miami's not even super American. It's more so a mix of all the Hispanic cultures. So you're gonna see here like Cubans, Colombians,
Yeah,
black people, Haitians. Like it's all mixed up. So it's crazy over here.
and I like it. I
Yeah.
like it. I like to
I've never
understand.
I've never met anybody from Ukraine before. You're the first person from Ukraine I've met.
Okay, so
Yeah,
share
so
it.
you have to rep for the whole Ukraine right now. No pressure, no pressure.
Yeah.
So, how'd you get to this point?
Um, do you want me to tell from the
Now
beginning?
see, before the podcast was for the short story. Now is the long story.
Long story. Yeah. As we previously talked, like long story. Right now I am student at FIU and study psychology.
All
But I
right.
already
Hey, high
have,
five, high five.
yeah. And like if to look on previous history, it's strange way from some perspective.
Yeah.
Because I was good at school. I was a student. I was super serious about education. I wanted to study for government scholarship, so I took it very serious. And I didn't know actually what I really want to do. Cannot say that I had preferences in subjects. And like at some point, I wanted to be a designer of clothes, but I was bad in drawing, and I still
You
am.
wanted to design clothes?
Yeah, clothes. I wanted to do like at some point I thought, I am creative. I
Yeah.
probably can do it. And my mom didn't support this idea,
No.
and I gave up it pretty fast.
Parents always want the safest option. They don't want something
Yeah,
out there.
and you know sometimes they cut your wings
Yeah.
in order to protect you, but they didn't don't let you grow.
Yeah, they don't want you to be like Icarus.
Yeah.
You know the story of Icarus?
No, I don't know what it is.
Okay, so it's a myth. It's a Greek myth, I think. And it's about this child, and his father keeps warning him, Icarus, don't fly too close to the sun,
Oh, okay.
because his wings were made of wax. He said, Icarus, don't fly too close to the sun, don't reach too high, because then your heart's gonna be broken when your expectations aren't met. That's the metaphor, at least.
Yeah.
So then he flies too close to the sun, and he burns, his wings melt, and he falls and he dies. And that's the story of Icarus. And that's what all parents fear, basically. It's like, oh, like for instance, my family, like my father was telling me that this podcast wasn't a good idea. It would distract me from my studies. Like, it's going to ruin my life, like all this. And I'm like, I'm having more fun than I ever have in my life doing this. So, you know.
Yeah.
But they still want the best interest for you. They're still looking out for your best interest in the best way they know how. And I'm probably going to do that when I'm a father. Like, I'm going to look out for my children, and they might think I'm being hard on them, but I'm just trying to look out for them.
I totally agree with you. They trying the best what they can, and sometimes it's the best evil of.
Yeah, the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, sometimes if parents trying to do the best and protect you from some things, they taking away your experience.
That's so true.
And from if they look on some situation, yes, they have experience, they have fears, they have some expectations, they want to do from you good child. But what can happen that they protect you too much, and then a lot of issues
I think
go
that's
outside.
basically the story of our generation. If you think
Yeah.
about it, I think that's why people, you see like 25-year-olds, 31-year-olds who aren't necessarily where people of their age would have been 30 years ago or 20 years ago, because we were raised in being protected. Like we were protected at every stage of life. We were sheltered from all the negative things we see in life, and that's just part of life. It's like you're gonna grow. You gotta face those things.
Yeah, and like if to look how my grandparents were growing, my parents, they didn't care so much. They give like some home tasks, they give a lot of tasks. They were busy with work, and they
Yeah.
don't care so much. Like they was not sheltering.
Yeah.
And my parents, I cannot say that they were super protective. In order, I know that there is extremes, like, but still, I know that at some point they were worried too much about me,
Yeah.
and like, so I will not get sick or I
Yeah.
will not like get into trouble.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's shape us.
So
It shape us, and it's.
yeah.
I believe that after 18 years old age, like the kids should know
Branch out.
how to make money, how to stay on their own, how to make decisions. They should be ready already at that
That's true.
age, and parents should let them go. It doesn't mean
It's
keep
scary
them
to
out.
do that as a parent, but you got to. You got to, or else
Um,
your kid's gonna be a baby forever. You don't want that.
did you hear about this analogy about birds? Like when mother bird um, like nesting these eggs and growing kids, and then at some point they exactly know where to kick it out from the
Yeah.
nest,
They have to, so it can
and
fly.
if they kick out too early it will fall
Die.
down and smash. If they try to kick out too late, it will not fly. It will not, like, it will be dependent on parents.
Yeah.
And this is something what is going on in like human life as
Yeah.
well.
That's so true. Yeah, if you kick your kids out when they're 13, they're not gonna know what to do, and they're gonna get shot. They're gonna get killed. But if you let them out, when they're 25, then they're gonna be stunted because they've been stuck to you too long. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So true. So let me not interrupt your story. Continue with where you were at.
Yeah, and if get back to my story, as I told, it was hard to decide where I want to go. And I started to go into intense tutoring for math in order to prepare for exams because it was very competitive and not generalized for every university. I need to apply and to take different exams. Not like here right
Yeah.
now, and actually in Ukraine they made also this general, you take this test at school and you apply for every university with the same test. I need to, if I wanted to apply for 5 universities, I need to have to take tests in each of these universities.
So in Ukraine, you had to take a test for each university, but over here it's like one test for all universities.
Yeah, it was back then.
Okay.
Back then when I was starting like my education path. And I decided to go into programming. I didn't know exactly what to expect. My uncle are a little bit in this technologies area, and he brought first computer for us and
Yeah.
like this all stuff. I know it sounds weird right now,
Yeah.
like, but back then it was something like I was the coolest girl
Yeah.
in my class because I had my own computer,
Yeah.
and it's influenced me, of course. And when I choose it's system level programming. In order to understand, it's like to this type of programming. It's low level programming. It means you need to write on machine language or kind of like
So
C++.
like 1000011.
It's like, I'm now exaggerating, but it's pretty hard language,
Yeah.
and it's pretty hard level because you need to understand pretty well how machine works and understand, like, it's meant to be to write drivers, to write like to program some micro schemes, something like that. And I figure out what my specialty.
To people who aren't programmers, what is a driver?
A driver, for example, if you have printer, you have software which help this printer to work on your computer. And there are a lot of different versions of this driver for different laptops. Or for example, if you have washing machine, there is some microscam, and it's programmed. There are so many technologies right now in our life. Like, I don't know, I have programmed lock in home.
Yeah.
So you press the button on your phone and it's lock your door.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I need to get that.
It's very nice because you need to carry a key with you.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of a lot of technologies, a lot of stuff where you can have these drivers which run some code and let you in the car. In the car, you would have like some screen, some like nowadays it's even microcomputer. It
Yeah.
would be,
Yeah.
but there are sometimes small pieces, and like most of my education was directed to computer architecture,
Right.
how
Right.
it's built, how like this work on system level. We were literally manually adding zeros and
That's
ones.
intense to be doing all that like on a computer all day. Like I couldn't.
It's
It'd be such a strain.
actually it wasn't so
No?
hard for me.
No.
I was a student,
Yeah.
and I cannot say. I think that at that point I was achiever, and for me it was important, no matter how, to get that A. It
Gotcha.
wasn't important knowledge so much. I have a group mate. He dropped school after second year or something like that. He was kicked out because he didn't made assignments. Like he
Yeah.
didn't attend school.
He wasn't a great student.
But you know what? He understood and knew all this stuff way much better than me. And he didn't study because he was bored. He expected that he will learn something.
Yeah.
And that's why school was not interesting for him. And he actually wasn't spoiled kid for like which parents were paying. He was working and paying.
He was just smart.
He was smart, but he was till some degree stubborn.
Yeah.
In order, like he couldn't deal with this system and all this stuff, and he didn't feel importance. And at the moment, I don't know how he ended up like in his life, but I know that like last time when I saw him and talked to him, like it was like my 5th year or something like that. He would get married, bought house, was working, so I was not even close to that state of mind. And I hope like everything is great in his life, but like he decided at some point that university is not required for him.
Yeah. And it worked out.
And I amazed with such people because he could dig deep into, for example, he's interested in fishing. He would dig deep, what like type of costumes, what type of like threads, it's hooks, like blah blah blah. He could teach himself better, way better than professors at the university.
It's kind of ironic to me that our best students hate school. If you think about it, like the best learners in society don't like the system that school has to provide. It can be kind of dull. Because right now teachers are trying to make students who aren't necessarily as smart feel included. They're trying to include people on the fringe, right? But then you leave behind all the smart people who are already ahead, and it dulls the mind of the student. And people like him, the person, what's his name? Do you know?
It's Kostya.
So
Kostya.
people like him, they get tired of the system and they leave. And he's a gem. Like he's one of the smartest students in the class, but he didn't like the system, so he was lost to the system.
Like this type of curiosity, I think it's way better than my academic successes. Because
you think so?
I think so. Because he had interest in everything what he was doing, and I had this pressure that I have to do it. And even though I thought I chose by myself like programming, I really was inspired. I really wanted to work in this area. I had high expectations. And
you didn't love it.
Like looking back, I understand that I was lying to myself. I wasn't happy. And
that's insane.
And I was frustrated. And first frustration came from me after 3rd year when I finally realized what I'm going to do with this profession. And I understood that something what we study there nobody needs on the market because it was so old. Like general understanding of how computer works, how to draw like block schemas, how to make algorithms. Like we had a lot of math, like calculus, all this stuff, like high math, a lot of this stuff. It's shape your way of thinking. But I didn't know how to apply it.
Yeah.
I didn't know, like, when I came for the first time for like job fairs, and they were asking for Java, for some PHP, like Python, something like that. I even didn't heard about these languages.
You just knew the basic computer languages, the
I
machine languages.
I cannot say it's too loud to say I knew it, because we were doing some school tasks.
Yeah.
It wasn't so hard, and like I thought at school, like we had maybe 80% was something like related to computers, but not really programming. So I didn't even touch truly programming, and I was creating some stuff which was running some algorithm. But in the real world, all this stuff covered already, because there are a lot of programmers and a lot of things are already done. You shouldn't invent your new bicycle.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah,
The bike works fine. You don't gotta make a new design.
And like something what was required, it was high level. High level in meaning you should know how and where to use already this made algorithm. Nobody needed this low level algorithm, kind of. I'm saying in very general level, because it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more complicated. And like I started to look for a job, but I wanted part-time. And at that point, part-time was something weird, not something for students, like something not something in programming. And I probably didn't look hard or didn't want to find it, because I wanted.
I mean, a part-time programmer, that would be.
I know personally, like some of my coworkers were students and
this
programmers.
is your first 6 years in college?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like after 5th year, I have found job. Like I started to look intensive, and like we had transition from our made during Soviet Union system to European system, like international system in education, and we had like junior specialist and senior specialist.
Right.
And then they put bachelor and master, and between bachelor and master there is specialist, and they didn't know where to put it.
Yeah. They're like trying to adjust to the new system, and they're like,
And not every specialty had already this master degree. And I obtained like this specialist. This is why I had 5 years. And then I decided, I was very ambitious, and I decided that I need to get this master's degree.
Okay.
And like after 5th year, I said, no, I don't want to get into any university. It's so useless. I don't want to. And then like I met a professor, and she said, how come you will be without master's degree? No, you should do it. And I went to master's degree, and like I think months before that, I have found a job. And I started to work as a quality assurance engineer. It means I was testing websites. So programmers were programming websites, and testers were testing websites
to see if they worked properly.
Yeah, like you have documents where design made, where functionality described, and as a quality assurance engineer, you should check quality. So you should check: was it made according to design? Was it made according to like specification and all this stuff, in order to make good quality of product, and find some leaking place where it can be like, I don't know, maybe you can take away money from this site or something like that. It's pretty serious stuff. And like at that moment I was in a small city, and there were not so many options, so I agreed on this testing job. But I was really obsessed with the idea to get programmer. And I remember after work I would ask my colleagues to help me to figure out how to do this programming. And I annoyed my boss that I want to be programmer, and he told me, yes, we would consider you, but you know, we know that you are a good tester, but we don't know are you a good programmer, and we need to spend time in order to teach you, and we need to replace somebody by somebody your place. It's kind of complicated, and I was annoying. At some point I get disappointed, and I decided to move to another city and to quit that job. and to look only for programmer. And it was hard. Sometimes word saying you some signs, but you blind and deaf and you don't hear it. And it was hard for me to find a job because I kind of had already previous experience in testing. I had something, and I was pretty good into entering interview room. But as soon as it went to technical side, I was not so strong. And it was like I could sell myself what usually developers struggling with. But I couldn't prove that I'm good developer.
That should tell you a little bit about yourself.
But
you're a good communicator.
At that point I didn't understand it.
It took you a little bit longer.
I was very obsessed with that idea that I need to be programmer. And I contacted 100 companies.
Sheesh.
Yes.
100. That's exhaustive. That's a big search.
Yeah. Whatever I have found in the city, I wrote to HRs, to recruiters, I sent a resume, and I was invited to 10 companies. And some interviews I failed just because I was nervous too much. Because I knew that I'm not really strong in programming. My self-confidence would fall down extremely. And at the moment that I already thought, okay, I go somewhere to vacation, and when I get back, I will start over. And at that point, one company wrote me, oh, we are going to open a new office in your city. Let's join us. And I was working with that company 2.5 years. But understanding that something wrong with this programming came to me way earlier. I started to feel frustration from the first month of my work. And can you imagine, as soon as I started to work as a programmer...
You didn't like it.
I didn't like it, but also, recruiters started to contact me, and they proposed me to be manager. And I was so proud that, what? You are contacting me? I am programmer. Why you decided even that why are you considering that I would like to go to management? And this pride, it's probably the biggest sin. And half year later, I had this clinch. Wow, probably something wrong. And when you struggle with something, it's not so easy to get out of it. And I thought maybe it's issue because of programming language, or because of company, or because company was very small. They were just starting all these processes, and in previous company it was organized way better than in this one. Even though I really loved people in that company, and they were growing. I was first hired person in this company in Lviv, city where I spent.
What was it called?
Lviv.
Lviv. All right. I'm trying to like it.
It's a very nice city, historical and very lovely.
All right.
Coffee city. And
it's like Boston or Philly.
I haven't been in Boston, so I cannot say it. Have you been in Europe?
Europe, no, I haven't. So I can't say it.
It's let's assume somewhere in Miami you can have this area with bricks and this cafe. It's center of city. It is
Coral Gables.
A little bit, a little bit. And around circle city, build old architecture, so 100-year city.
So it's it moves out in rings.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I've only seen that kind of city in cartoons.
It's pretty old. It's a 100-year city.
Sheesh.
Yes, it has
ancient,
long history, and from.
I'd love to go there.
You should. Lviv.
All right, I need to add that. Hold on. Let me add that to my list.
Yeah, it's very lovely city, and city center is built old architecture and all this, and culture. People are also very interesting in this way. Yeah.
So man, I don't even know where to start. Tell me about Ukraine. What is it like over there? I wouldn't even know.
It's different. It's different areas. I'm originally from the central Ukraine, and culture of central Ukraine, it's a little bit different from West Ukraine. I moved to West Ukraine, and last 7 years I spent in West Ukraine. and even geography is different. Like
Yeah.
in the central Ukraine, it's much warmer. In the West Ukraine, it's pretty foggy. Like if you heard about London fogs and
Yeah.
rains, it's even way more.
It's super cold over there too, right?
Comparing with Miami,
Yeah.
yes.
But it's not that bad over there. Like, how are your winters?
Hmm?
How was the winter over there?
Actually, for me, if it's like below 30
Yeah.
Fahrenheit, it's much nicer than it's when it's around like this freezing point, when it's snow, but you have water and snow and
Yeah.
dust and everything. It's not like it's when it's a little bit warmer, a little bit colder, and it's like it's not frozen, but it's not
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
like. And sometimes it might be, I don't know, 64, but it will be so chilly. It will be raining, and you feel like all your muscles are
Yeah,
like
tight.
with spikes.
Ah, man, you're giving me memory. I was born in Iowa, so you know Iowa.
Where is
It's a midwestern state in the United States.
it? Okay.
Yeah, so it's freezing up there. Like the coldest it ever got, it was like -20 in the winter. It was like, oh, terrible. But I don't really remember it much because I left when I was 9. But that cold was serious. I haven't felt cold like that since then. Like, to me now, cold is like 40 degrees. That's cold. Like
For me, 64.4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why I'm saying 64.4 because we think in different system of measurement.
Oh,
Like
okay,
it's
okay.
18 degree. Everything.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. So you
And-
do Celsius?
Yes.
Celsius. Oh, okay. I'm talking Fahrenheit.
I know. I was
okay.
talking Fahrenheit too.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because I know that in US.
Yeah.
It's
U.S.
different.
is everything is messed up in the United States.
Yeah.
Inches. What is inches? That's the stupidest thing. It's like, why don't we use centimeters, like all the.
I
doesn't
read
make any sense.
recently funny joke, like in order to remember how much in 1 mile is feet, you say like 5 tomatoes. It's 508, like something like that. And another guy is answering like, in order to remember how much in 1 kilometer meters, you just memorize 1,000.
Yeah.
Because
Kilo, 1,000
Yeah.
meters, 1,000 meters. There, it's done. Like.
Yeah, because our European system of measurement was not created by drunk mathematicians.
Yeah. For real. That is so
Yeah.
true. It's like, how did you? Oh, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you use inches? Why would you use?
It makes sense because when wasn't there were not how it's called, these etalons of measurement and some meters. It was invented like not.
Yeah.
I don't remember when exactly, but not so long time ago. And people were measuring by inches, by like elbows,
Yeah.
by feet, because it was way of measurement. Of course, it cannot be standardized because somebody has feet like this long
Yeah,
and somebody has
shorter feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like. It's a
but
mess.
it was at least something. So
I mean, hey, if there would have been like, okay, a size 10 shoe or like a size 12 shoe, then yeah, like that would be better at least. But they were just like a foot, a foot. Like
Yeah.
that's how they judged it. It was
for me,
insane.
I still converting, especially food, feet, ounces, all this stuff. I still converting sometimes. Sometimes it's just something. Okay, I understand that it's kind of
Yeah.
half of something.
Yeah, half 2 centimeters an inch, roughly.
Yeah, especially with distance to predict, like it's 150 feet left, and it takes time
Yeah,
in order to figure out.
I don't think about it.
Intuitively how far it is or how
Yeah.
short it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, this adjustment is kind of complicated.
If only we could standardize certain things and just let that be that. Like just make all measurements the same across all countries, all that. Can you imagine like if the world, instead of having countries and breaking it up, you could travel anywhere in the world at any time. There's no states, there's no country. So like people from Ukraine and people from the United States are citizens of the world. And we just go from place to place. Of course, we maintain like the governing bodies. So the U.S. would govern the U.S. and Ukraine would govern Ukraine. But the travel laws are,
Yeah.
that would be open.
What has happened recently with Ukraine, that Ukraine get permission to travel, Ukrainian has permission to travel on free visa to Europe. And I can visit any country in Europe.
Yeah, because the
who is
EU,
in
right?
Schengen.
In the EU,
European Union, yes.
Britain's trying to leave, but it's getting crazy over there.
We didn't join the European Union.
No?
No, not yet. I think it will take extra 10 years if everything in political situation will be good.
I hate politics. They take so long to process things.
But can you imagine scale of the system?
Yeah.
If you try to organize something for 10 people, and you will understand that it's
very complicated. Yeah. No, I understand. I understand why it takes long. It's just, it's a hassle.
And also, it's like big ship and small ship. Small ship is like ship, and very fast will move somewhere where it's one. And big ship, it should be stable. So in order to be stable, it's less flexible and more rigid and more rules, more all this bureaucracy. Because if there will be less structure and it will be less predictable, then it will be very hard to.
Yeah, that's happening. That's happening on college campuses. Like here at FIU, it's super bureaucratic now, and I'm sure it wasn't like this in the past. Like even for my podcast, I put up posters for my podcast, just advertising a podcast. Like it's just, and I'm putting it up over campus, and they're taking them down because they have certain regulations now. Basically, what it is they only want to advertise things that they get paid for. Okay. So it's like I don't know if you know in Ukraine if it's the same, but in America, college campuses are like it's separated from the rest of the world. At least it's supposed to be. Like it's supposed to be a community where everybody's like involved and enjoying life, but it's just like any capitalist structure. It's like a business at this point.
It is business.
And I know it is. I know it is, and it's a shame that it's like that in my opinion because I feel like people learn better in a community, and if it doesn't feel like a community, people are going to be less inclined to get involved in it. So if this bureaucracy is like that, and I can't put it up unless I pay them or I have a deal with them, a business contract, then that's very limiting. I think it's limiting students because learning in the classroom isn't the only type of learning that should be recommended or encouraged. Like I'm doing a podcast. This is a type of learning. I'm expanding my horizons this way, but they don't encourage that at all. I mean, hey, it is what it is. But the bigger something is, like you said, the more bureaucracy it comes with.
Yeah, it's about balance to some degree because it's. They should care about money and to be profitable. Otherwise, they will die.
Yeah, and they won't be a good campus anymore.
Sometimes, no matter which company emphasizes too much on money, they might forget what is goal, and they will not provide services. Like it will be more about to make students to go through the university and to take money, but not to give them education. Yeah,
that's so true. But I do like this campus. It's providing a lot. Like even now, we're in a classroom recording the podcast. I wish you guys could see. There's nobody in this classroom. It's a huge auditorium. It's so funny to just be in here with no one else. It's odd.
I have with what to compare, like different educational system, and I cannot say that like Ukrainian system is very bad or American system is like very bad or something very good. There is some general issues which I see in educational system, no matter is it Ukraine or US. There are some things which are in Ukraine much better on some things. For example, why Ukrainian students are really good in math. Because
American students are poor in math.
Way of teaching is very, very good in this way.
So what's different about how they teach math?
Like I had statistics previous semester, and I had really amazing professor. But I understand that because a lot of responsibilities given to students, not everybody is ready to organize himself or herself in that way to order to get that understanding. And especially people who are not from math degree, they expect that they will take notes and somehow it will go into their head.
Yeah.
But with math, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And like a structure of the class, like lectures 3 times per week, and he's a really good lecturer, but we don't practice. And then labs. 2 hours per week on
Yeah.
it, and it's on my responsibility, and nobody checking or giving feedback. If I did it, I did it. If I didn't do, it's my like only point where they check did I get the material or not, it's exam. And it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late by that point.
Yeah, like we have 3 midterms and final. So and a lot of students were struggling because like you have problems, you have answers, you kind of could write down everything, but you didn't got because you didn't practice, you didn't struggle with something, nobody gave you feedback. And I think like how it would be this made in Ukraine, we would have also lectures and practical classes. And in practical classes, a smaller group, like 10 people, and everybody will be called to whiteboard, and everybody would write down the problem which professor give, and the professor will give feedback. Of course, there is also some percent of students who didn't get and didn't want to get the maths. And I believe that there are no people who cannot get a problem. There is a teacher who cannot find a way how to teach this person.
Yeah. That's a much better way to lead a classroom, because people are always gonna have questions, especially if the teacher knows what they're talking about. Because sometimes people who are good at something, they overlook certain things. So let's say a teacher's giving a lecture, right? If they know math very well, they might assume that the students know certain things that they do, and they might skip over things that seem obvious, right? So a student might be confused about this. They might, like in our situation here at campus, they might go do the lab. They might learn the 2 hours, yada yada, but then never practice it, never learn the thing that they were questioning, and be too afraid to ask a professor during lecture because there's 90 students in the classroom.
200 in our case.
200.
Yeah.
200 in the classroom. So the Ukrainian system with the smaller class where they do the practical problems, that makes a lot of sense.
And I think because you kind of forced to take this practical class. Of course, there always was students who didn't attend classes. There always was like there is some percent who they don't care, or they think somebody told them that you are stupid in math and they decided to leave this. But in general, like because you have to go to this class and have to do and you are guided, it's giving you much better understanding and much better like solving skills. So like this difference is like better. But if to look, for example, on some lecturing ways, maybe because it's psych major, I don't know. But I see that professor, some of them trying to do this like psychological tricks, like to put some sexual content, and students like getting awake.
Another thing. In my senior year of high school, my psychology teacher, his name was Mr. Urbanik, one of the greatest teachers I've ever had. He would cuss. He would say cuss words like randomly. Like he would just out of nowhere. During a lecture, he would just say it loudly, like drop an F-bomb or something. He'll say it like just grab everybody's attention. Everybody's head like bolts up. Everybody's like, oh well. Like some teachers cuss a lot. He didn't cuss a lot. He cussed occasionally to get attention, like you said with the sex. And he was a psych teacher, so it makes sense. He understands the psychology of it, and he understands how to keep people involved in the classroom. And I think that's important. And a teacher who didn't enjoy their job wouldn't do that, because they just want to get through the day, through the lecture, through the class. They're not interested in getting the students involved. But a teacher who loves what they do, usually psych teachers love what they do because psych is very interesting. They're right there. They're like boom, 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 making the class interesting for all the students.
Yeah, I like lecturer who like professors whom I took this semester. They are amazing.
Yeah.
Because everybody like I really enjoy. I feel like it's not enough. 50 minutes is not enough.
Yeah, it's not.
Because I really enjoy classes. I really enjoy this class like personal development because we can talk, not only listen.
Yeah, it's really fun.
It's like more interaction, and I had expectations that there is more hands-on, more interactions, more like some work where you can try something. Something different from lecturing. And I came here and I see that here is
it's a conversation.
Lecturing. I mean, like in general, most classes it's lecturing.
Of course.
I was a little bit disappointed because in between my different two educations, I had the chance to try trainings where you have have hands on, and it's way different. Like,
You know, we I have a platform. I have a podcast, and I hope one day to get professors on. Like that's ultimately the goal. Like I want to have a lot of professors on, musicians, like people from all walks of life. I want to have everybody on this podcast. And the thing that I want to focus on with professors is how can we make class better? How can we make learning better? Because there's so many people, like you mentioned the kid earlier who was really good at the programming. There's smart people who slip through the cracks, and that shouldn't be happening. I always say, imagine if everybody did what they wanted to do. Like people who loved making sandwiches worked at Publix and working making subs. Those subs would be delicious. And everybody who worked at the subs who didn't want to work at the subs, who wanted to make vehicles, who wanted to make designs for cars, went and did that. And then the cars would be amazing. And imagine, like, you get what I mean, right?
yeah,
People who want to be on podcasts, make podcasts. Like, if everybody did exactly what they wanted to do, the world would work amazingly. So, if we have students learning the way they want to learn, they're going to learn better. And they're going to do better. And they're going to be able to provide more and contribute better to society.
do you know where is trick? For me, it took almost 10 years to figure out a little bit what I want. So not everybody knows what they want, and you cannot know beforehand.
Yeah.
But before you try it.
You got to do it to understand what it is.
Yeah, and
then see
sometimes
what
you need
like.
to spend. Sometimes in some areas you need to go. For example, I heard about some great salespeople. They were resistant. They were failing. They were like didn't close the deals, and then went through the struggles, and they became like ideal sales. Like,
Yeah, they became
very,
good because
very,
they
very
learned.
successful.
They learned.
So it's hard to distinguish. Is it really bad because you didn't went through, or is it not yours?
Right.
And I was questioning when I finally I will get back to talking
Yeah.
about programming.
We went on a huge tangent. We jumped off the boat on that one.
Yeah, when I got programming job, I thought that something wrong. Probably like I didn't choose proper programming language. I didn't choose proper company. Maybe it's too small. Maybe it's process doesn't start.
You went through the gambit. You went through
yeah,
everything.
and I tried long enough in order to understand that it's not mine. Like 2.5 years. It's not like 1 month and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I started at some point. I started to learn different programming language by myself. I get up at 6 a.m.
Sheesh.
and from 6 till 8.
You're a student for real. It's the day you die, you're gonna be a student.
And from 6 till 8, I was by myself learning this programming language. And at some point, I understood it's month pass, and I don't feel huge progress. I don't feel like I was setting up something, configuring something, but I didn't feel that I really understand something.
Yeah.
And I understand it's probably not the programming language.
Yeah.
And at some point, like I was lucky to be invited on training. Like it's personal development training, and there were a lot of exercises and hands-on. It's very funny. It's completely different. Like you stay up from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m.
Sheesh.
From till 1 a.m. No,
Oh
and you learning, but like theory is only 15%.
Yeah.
And everything else is activity. You're receiving like something what we had here in class. You're receiving honest feedback from different people, and it's shifting your mind.
It does.
Because usually we don't see how we behave to other people. Usually we are not ready to admit that we are, I don't know, we are not super efficient at everything. For me, the biggest understanding was that like inside that I saw that I'm super efficient. I saw that I'm super hard worker. But in fact, I was imitating that I working hard.
Yeah.
And I saw that it should be rewarded. But real efficiency was way not that. And it was my illusion. It's not like I was lying to everybody. I was lying to myself, first of all. I didn't want to see it because it was like I had advantage from this.
Yeah. You had worked so many years for this. You didn't want to tell yourself that you had made a mistake.
Yeah. And like it's a way of working. It's taking work. Like I was, I don't know, spreading it too much.
Spreading yourself thin.
Like too much of idealistic stuff.
Yeah.
Too much. And on that training as well, I took personality test. And there were like, maybe you heard, maybe like Google DISC.
GIS?
DISC, DISC.
Oh.
Yeah. You can find it online. I believe I saw it on Tony Robbins' site. And
Motivational speaker.
yeah, he's not motivational speaker. He's good psychologist, actually.
Yeah, he is.
I really recommend you to watch some videos. Like he has good experience in a lot of different topics. And after this test, I understood that there are different type of personality. Like D, it's dominant. I, it's influence. S, it's sustainable, I believe, and C, it's control or something like that. And well, usually people have like 2 letters combination, like dominant in their type of personality. Yeah, like very rare, like only 1 letter is very strong. And I had kind of dominant influence. And there were also recommendations with different profession what might be suit to you. And I had like high percentage for HR, marketing, project manager, direct sales.
So everything extroverted, everything related to people, you were recommended to do.
Yeah.
And you were working as a programmer.
And
in
programming,
strict isolation.
Programming was 30% only.
Oof.
And after the test, I understood that nothing wrong with me. I just have different traits, and I need to develop them. And after that, I decided to quit job. And actually, I didn't have plan A, B, or C. I didn't have savings. I remember as my manager, who a great friend with me right now, she asked me, do you have any savings? Do you have somebody who will support? And at that moment, I didn't have any support, and I didn't have any plan. And I decided to just quit. And actually, money, some savings which I had, I spent on training on recruiting. Yes. And
wow, you were brave. That's a brave thing to do.
I'm risk taker.
Yeah, you could say that.
And it's not always like logical, or sometimes I follow just feeling and take some brave steps, and I cannot explain why.
Yeah.
And I just hope that everything will be okay.
You just have that personality, the person that's ready to go out and just do something brave and wild. You know, like
it's if I feel like that, because 2.5 years I was struggling with that programming. I was depressed. I was like
upset all the time.
Upset, really. I was getting up in the morning.
Depressed.
In the morning, it was 11. Like I had meeting at 11 a.m. with our clients, with our managers on Europe side, and I would late it on it because I would get up at 10.
Yeah.
And I was barely getting up. And you know how, like I remember, like today I get up and I feel this happiness.
Yeah. Because you're doing something you love.
No, I just feel by itself, you know? You don't think why you feel it or I just feel this joy. But back then, I would get up and I said, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I want to sleep. I feel like I'm dying. I feel so low energy. That was my daily self-talk. It's kind of, I even cannot imagine how I worked.
Yeah. Because I imagine you pounding these negative ideas into your head constantly. Like, it's going to be tough to get up in the morning.
I spend a lot of energy on forcing myself to do work. Not on doing actually job, but forcing myself. And it's burning you. It's burning you constantly. That's why I was getting sick like any flu, sneezing, like every month I had this
stress kills
history.
Your immune system. Kills it.
It's protective system.
Yeah.
Don't look on this like about stress. It's not about stress. I was stressing myself, but it was protective system because I couldn't get out of this skewed mind that probably I should, like, did you hear about blueprint?
Blueprint?
Yeah.
No, I'm not familiar.
Like in engineering, it's schema.
Oh yeah. I know what a blueprint is. Yeah.
And in psychology, it's like your mental schema which you follow. For example, this weird idea that I have to be programmer.
Right. Where did that come from? Do you know, like, how you were raised, maybe, your parents'
Like,
expectations?
I cannot say that it's
Your
my
uncle with the computer?
Yeah, I think like some little bit of
Yeah.
influence of my uncle, little bit of influence that his grandfather, my grandfather, his father was an engineer, and like I don't know. Also, I remember my teacher told to me that like to my mom, she told like, let Ina do not go to. Sewing all this stuff, better to do programming because it's should be very good, very popular, and like
It'll make you a
money
lot of money, yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't think about making a lot of money at that point. I thought that I need to do something serious, some inventions, you know.
You thought you had to be an innovator?
And
The only
I am to some
innovation
degree.
innovation won't come from a forced mindset. You have to enjoy what you're doing so much that you see the flaws in it. Like when let's say I'm doing a podcast, right? And I'm listening to it back. I can't listen to my own podcast. I hate them so much because I hear myself speak and I'm like, you could have said this. Why didn't you say this? Why didn't you say that? Let's say I didn't care about podcasts. Like I was forced to do it. Like you forced yourself to do programming, right? Let's say I forced myself to do a podcast. I wouldn't have that same attention to detail. I wouldn't care about the product because I didn't enjoy it. I wouldn't make it better. Every podcast I feel that I've made has improved. The first podcast was extremely awkward, a whole bunch of awkward silences. Then the next couple podcasts come, I'm getting better intros, better outros, yada yada this, yada yada that. If you do something you love, you're going to get better at it quickly, very quickly, and you're going to want to get better at it because it's something you love. It's just like anything else that you love.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it took time for me to understand this. And I feel that right now I'm to the closest point when I understand what I enjoy.
Yeah.
For example, I enjoy this podcast with
Yeah,
you.
it's
and
fun.
That's why
it's
I
fun.
jumped in your offer because it's something what I like to do. I like to share stories. I like to share ideas. I like to share instruments, and I like to inspire people. And I understand.
You play instruments?
No.
Oh, so wait, I misheard you. You like to share instruments? You said.
When I say instrument, I mean.
You mean like tools?
Tools. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's like something that people don't say often in Miami. I don't hear it said often. Technically you can say it like instruments of success, tools of success. It's the same thing.
Yeah, you see,
I'm just so unused. I'm not used to hearing people use that in that way.
Take into account that I came back from
Right, yeah.
if like I think it's like how I learn English. It will take time for another podcast because it's different story.
You need to keep that way because that's the authentic English. That's how it should be spoken, in my opinion. That's what I believe. Because instruments they should be used as tools, but people only use it in reference to musical instruments.
Maybe it's correct. I don't know.
No. You're right.
Really?
You should be able to say the word instrument for any tool. It's an instrument for success, or it's an instrument like whatever. A scalpel is an instrument, technically, by the definition of the word. But people don't use it that way, which is upsetting to me because it limits people's vocabulary. People only use like, oh, that's a tool, not an instrument, and be like, an instrument's a type of tool. It's like you got to use different words to explain different things so you can be more specific. So it's good that you used instrument in that way. I just didn't anticipate it. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, like I mentioned that how I started to be able to speak English. It's a different story because I never learned English at school, and something what I learned at the university. It wasn't like when I started to work and they asked me, "Do you know English?" I said, "I think like on C level, at least I could read." I thought when I got bench of documentation, I was not able to understand anything.
No?
I didn't understand neither basic English, neither general words. And something what I thought that because I work with computers, I probably know English. No, it was illusion. It was huge illusion. And
do you read a lot now? Like
yeah,
books?
I read a lot, and I listen in audiobooks.
Audiobooks, that's smart. That's very smart.
It's help to understand by hearing. And
what are your favorite kind of books?
Different, like
all over the place.
like few years ago I was listening something like more about business, about like something like that. Right now it's more about psychology.
Have you ever read the book Sapiens?
I'm not sure. I think not.
It's a great book. I read it. It's about how humans made them, like sapiens, how humans separated themselves from other races of humans, and how we stood out and why we are the way we are today. It's a super super interesting book. Like you gotta check it out. It's by I can only remember their last name. It's Harari. I'll send you the information later, but it's a great book. Like it's incredible. And one of the topics that it brought, I can't help myself. One of the topics that it brought up is that humans stood out from Neanderthals because they could communicate in large groups, and the only way that they were able to communicate in large groups is that they were able to portray myths. So they were able to organize large groups of people based on myths. So basically, that's religion of today. You know, people organize based on that, or government. You know, like the military. That's a myth. The military doesn't exist. The people in the military exist. The weapons the military uses exist. But the military, the United States, Ukraine, does not exist. The people within it, the land within it exists. But the idea of it is, you know, it's just it's not real.
It's everything about storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, some myths. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So it's I
Till,
guess
till which point? Yeah. Okay. So we stopped on programming.
yeah.
And I quit programming, and I started like, you know what interests had happened. Opportunities started to come to me. Like I would say, door of world has opened.
Yeah.
Because even though I didn't have experience in some areas, people started to invite me. Like one girl invited me, let's do some training business, and I was like co-partner with her, and when we would organize some trainings and invite people, then we understood that it do not bring money, and we decided to stop. As soon as I stopped, like another proposal was, and at some point one of my friends told me like, oh, can you help me with recruiting? And I decided to help a little bit her, and then like I started to do by myself and started to share with my friends. You know, I'm doing recruiting. I kind of help for IT companies to hire programmers and etc. And at that point, a lot of my friends, my peers, started to run their own companies, and they really needed. And like it took some time when I figured out how to run recruiting,
Right.
and like in few months, I decided to take somebody to help me, and it started roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I would say that it would have more psychological basement there than technical.
Yeah.
Because technically, you're closing vacancies, taking people in your team, and making money, and that's it. But I had some resistance to making money.
Yeah.
Like I would make it very easily, and way better that I was doing is this in programming. But for some reason, I would feel some guilt that I didn't deserve
Guilt.
them.
Yeah. You were in sales.
It's like recruiting. It's till some degree sales, because first step you present yourself to the company, and company say, yeah. Like I was, you know what is recruiting?
No, I'm not necessarily familiar.
It's like hiring manager.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. That makes sense.
So I had like, let's say, my small own business in this area. So I would help for IT
For jobs to find people to hire.
for
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah.
I would look for people, for good specialists, and would help to hunt them in order to get them in the company. It's pretty competitive market, and you need to know how to talk with these people. And because I was programmer, it was much easier for me to speak with programmers, because I understood their points, like pain points and struggles, and it's way easier to find some common dots when you have something common.
Yeah, of course.
The more you have, the easier to talk. And like I had jumps. At some point, I would slow down, burn out. I was burning down. Like first half of year, it was like really good. More or less, next half of year was like more or
Yeah.
less. And
Over
then
time, you just got tired and tired and
it's
tired.
it's I would go to for vacation 2-3 times per year, and every time when I went to vacation, I was very tired,
Yeah.
and I do not understand why. And I understand right now that I had extremes. Like at some point, I couldn't say myself stop because I was working on myself. I would take all these projects, and I couldn't say stop after 6 p.m., for example, or on weekend. It was hard to say where is my private life ending and starting job, and vice versa. Because I would go to the party with my friends, and they would say, "Oh, this guy is business analyst," and I have vacancy right now, and we're starting to talk
Yeah.
about work, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of not comparing how much energy and effort I was putting into programming. I didn't have this resistance, and I felt sometimes this guilt that I'm not mature enough or I'm not competent enough, and it's this effect of imposter, that you think that you are not on the place because you are not the same as other experts. Even though I jumped into this area pretty fast and I reached the levels that some people still didn't reach. And I think I spent almost 3 years. In
3 years of that. So let's break it down. So 6 years of school for programming,
Yeah.
then 2.5 actually programming. No,
Like,
before that you were a QA.
yes, QA.
QA. Then you went into programming for 2 years, and then you were a recruiter
Yes.
for 3 years,
Yes.
and now we are here.
Yeah. And I really like that freedom which I get because I was my own boss. And this freedom gives you also responsibility.
Yeah.
And
Sound like Spider-Man. Have you ever seen Spider-Man, the
I
first
saw,
one?
but I
With
don't
great,
remember.
the grandpa's talking to Spider-Man, the kid, and he's like, "With great power comes great responsibility." It's like,
that's really true.
yeah, it is.
And like from the beginning, I really enjoyed it because I could plan. For example, I started to figure out where is my effective, productive or not productive time. I could combine where I search for programmers and when I go to the lunch with somebody and like continue recruiting in some way. And or go to the gym when I feel tired, or go for running, or go to the park. So I could change these activities. But at some point, from super performer, I started to slow down to procrastinator, and I end up that for some reason it started like fall down everything. Like I don't know. In one case, like developer was not hired. In some case, like from my teams, people started to leave. We had some misunderstanding, or somebody wanted to grow. Or at some point, I would borrow money to pay some bonuses because I didn't have earnings. And one morning, I get up, open laptop, and I understand that I cannot work. I cannot type, and it's not hard technically work. You just type.
Yeah.
Like they were part of creativity because you need to figure out some nice email in order to catch the programmer or like a manager or other specialist, or find a way backdoor how to find this person. But I couldn't do even these easy steps. I felt so down.
You were just burnt. You were
I was
toast.
I was burned till the bottom.
Yeah.
And I called to my clients and say I cannot work. I just need to stop, and I don't know when I get back. And they say, okay, in 2-3 weeks, like when you get better,
2-3 weeks.
Get back to us. And I understood that it's not 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
And some of my partners, like I had some colleagues with whom I was in touch, and then from one city, like one girl wrote, we are looking for clients. Do you have somebody maybe to recommend? And I'm like, I was so happy to give these clients to that girls because I understand that I will not get back.
Yeah.
And it was a really deep time for me. Like I spent almost all summer doing nothing, and it was very hard for me. And like I couldn't work. I couldn't work at all, and I'm extrovert. I like to communicate with people. I would network on different conferences. I attend conferences. I would present some ideas, would organize some meetups. And at that moment, like I could speak only with some of my friends and
And that
one
was
to one. If somebody more, like I felt like
stressed.
it was. I believe it was kind of depression.
Yeah.
Because like I would cry without reason, something like that.
Damn.
And like I believe that everything happening for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And like till the end of summer, I got the idea that maybe I need to study, and what I would like to study, and I decided to study psychology. Because at that point, I understand that something like this. I don't like this roller coaster.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like that. It's kind of funny, but it's something wrong. Um, I don't like that I struggle with some things and I cannot get through what is going on. And the idea to go to psychology was like based on a very egoistic basement because first of all, I wanted to figure out from myself.
Yeah, just living life, I want to understand what's going on with my head, why I think this, why I think that, why some things are hard, why some things make sense to me. You know, like just knowing psych, forget as a, like as a job or a career. Just understanding psychology makes your life better. I think at least.
I totally agree with you. And actually, like I remember previous semester, I had this psychotherapy class, and the professor asked who is planning to be a psychotherapist, and I didn't raise my hand because I kind of didn't consider myself as a psychotherapist, and I still not sure that I want to pursue this career. But something what I started to notice that some people asking me advices or asking some guidance on mentorship, and I actually had it for a long time. I just didn't notice this because it's like you're talking with friends, you're giving some advices, they're coming to you for advices, but you don't consider this as a career.
Yeah.
And I started to think maybe I need to go to coaching, because coaching and psychology or psychotherapy, it's a little bit different focuses, and it's have similar idea to help people, but different instruments or different tools. And I started to think maybe I really want to go into coaching. And right now I study psychology, but I think maybe like this summer, next summer, I will take some certification in coaching because it's like something really
You
inspiring.
like what would you coach?
It's like there is life coaching, couples coaching, business coaching, and I understand. I cannot say that I like one topic. I like business, and I was in the business, so I like this idea of scalability. But I also
Scalability.
Yeah.
What is that?
Is that you can scale because when you're one person, you can sell yourself only
One time.
once. But when you have business, you can organize, you can give opportunities for other people to work, and you can scale all this stuff in bigger perspectives. And also, I noticed that even without a degree in psychology, I have a lot of tools which I can share, and other people very thankful. And I understand that I can take money for it, but I need to get certified in order to do it properly, because it's like to pay taxes, to organize like some LLC or something like that. There are a lot of this bureaucracy which you need to go through.
You gotta get it. If not, man, the IRS is gonna come hit you.
Yeah.
They're gonna come take all your money. Like, so you've been on a roller coaster for real.
Yeah.
You've been around. What are your plans in terms of school for psych? Do you want to get like a bachelor's?
Definitely,
Masters,
I will get the bachelor's.
Master's, PhD.
I'm not sure that I want to do PhD because it's more about research, and even I have a research method class, and I like this idea how to build the research, how to understand relations between variables. But what I don't like, it's again not really it's more with data. It's less with people.
Yeah,
So I
that's true.
understand, and for why I started to burn out in recruiting,
Is it because of the numbers?
it's because of like I was sitting 8 or more hours in front of the computer and was writing cold emails and trying to find to reach out proper people, but real communication, different communication, was absent.
Right.
And like I thought, come on, finally I have found something with these people. Why burning out again?
Yeah.
And then because of that.
Yeah.
It's because of that. And like great part of this recruiting business that I had public speaking events, like where I would share some instrument knowledges about recruiting, and it was very inspiring for me. And it's why I would even be, I don't know, sick or very tired. I came to the audience, I shared,
Yeah.
and I was getting so inspired.
So you like public speaking. So what you can do when you get your degree in psych is you could give talks. You could do a TED Talk one day. I want to do a TED Talk one day.
Yeah.
I want to do one. Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm already nervous. I'm not even like, I don't have anything to talk about yet. But I eventually, yeah, one day I want to be in a TED Talk. See you there.
Let's do it.
See you there. See you there.
Let's do it.
All right, well, let's wrap up the podcast. We've been talking for a while now. I'd love to have you on again. This has been the 14th installment of an Isaiah Desta Conversation. If you enjoyed, please leave a 5-star rating and a review. Until next time, have a nice day.